Yo, what up, HalfStack? It's your boy Ken Wheeler in a tiger kimono. Um, that's Ken underscore Wheeler on Twitter if you want to read a bunch of bullshit. And today we're going to learn how to make beats in the browser. So before we get started, I have two things. The first thing is I built something really cool for this. The second thing is I've built a lot of these type of things over the years, and I'd like to run through some of the prior art so we could see the evolution and what I'm going to show you today is special. So my first foray into making beats on the web was a project called React Music. And what you would do is you would use React components to make songs, right? Like loops of music. So you'd have like a song tag with the tempo getting set. You'd have your sequencer where you'd be able to specify the resolution and the number of bars. And then you'd have these primitives like synth here, right? And sampler, right? Where you could take a sample and at specified steps, right, you would play that sample. So it was pretty cool. You can check it out here, and it's, this is created with React components. So it turns out that most people who are normal don't want to make music like this, which is fair. So the next thing that I tried out was making a UI for this sort of thing, right? And here I originally made this drum machine and called it the Trap Lord 9000. But what you're seeing here is the thing that you can check out at hypebeats.dev, where Natter Dabbit created this using my drum machine, where you can have like this collaborative environment where multiple people can make a beat together. It's really fun. But this one, right, it sort of did a similar thing, where, right, you have this little, lots of fun. But unfortunately, right, it's still, it's a better authoring experience, but you can't really make beats, right? Like, it's fun to play, and you could play and do, little kick clap, but it's not really an authoring experience where, hey, I can have this full beat, right? So I wanted to build that, and it's a breathtaking pain in the ass, but it's much less of a pain in the ass with a library called Tone.js. If you haven't seen this, it's a variety of helpers around the Web Audio API. If I built this with the Web Audio API and I had to explain that, this would be a 2-hour talk. But I only have 20 minutes here. So, actually they have a lot of this like figured out. So if you're going to do something like this, if you want to, mess around with music, I highly recommend it because it has wrappers and, helpers for just about everything. You have the basic primitives, things like oscillators and envelopes, which, the Web Audio API has. But then you have these more compound things like synthesizers, right? You have this like this is the synth primitive, right? And sampler, which is one of my favorites, where you can feed it a wave sample, right? Because, sometimes the synth sounds don't sound so good. Sometimes they do sound good. I digress. But it also has things like effects. And my favorite thing, if you've ever done web audio, is the sequencing here. Because sequencing web audio is a breathtaking pain in the ass. It's unbelievable. But they do a really good job of wrapping that up in an easy-to-use interface here. If you're going to do this, you can use Tone. I use Tone. So I want to show you what I built here today, and we'll go through it, and I'll unveil it as we're explaining it. So I built this thing called BeatMaker, and the idea behind it is that we can make real beats with it. I want to focus on the Tone.js stuff more than the React stuff. I built it with React, but I don't want it to be a total React lesson. So yeah, here's a play button. Here are these buttons where you can add these individual tracks, and here's your beats per minute. So I'll pull up the code for a second. Let's just look at those buttons for a second. So we have the add track, and we have a type, drum, bass, or bell. And then we have handle new track, right? So here, what we're doing is we're adding a new track to this array of tracks. And I just want to go over this kind of like matrix format here. So it has a type, right, which is the type of instrument that it is, and we'll get to why that's important. It has a gain, right, which is a fancy word for volume. It has whether it's muted or not, and then it has the steps, and it has different steps if it's a drum track or if it's a not a drum track. So let's just take a look at these real quick, right? So what we're doing is we're creating an array of steps. All right, so there's an array with 32 indexes, and those 32 indexes correspond to 32 different steps along one bar of music. Let's pause for a second. I'm going to hop over here to Ableton, right, which is regular music software, where we have a little beat. Fire. But yeah, this pops open a piano roll, right, which is kind of I gotta get it out of edit mode. This is kind of a step sequencer, right? So you see the different resolutions in here, right? The grid will snap to different ones here, right? But what it is it's a loop. So the resolution can get pretty small if you really want it to. But I didn't implement zooming, so we're sticking with 32. Right, so that's why there's 32 steps there. Now, for each one of those steps, right, for the drums, I have 5 drum sounds. For the notes, I have 24, right, which is a solid portion of a keyboard. If we go back to live for a second, you can have more than one note at a given step, and that's how you create a chord, right? So that's why we have this multi-dimensional array, the matrix, if you will, because for each step you can have up to 24 different notes for that step. You're not going to. I mean, I think I set up the thing. You wouldn't have 24 filled in, but you would have like 3, 5, 7, whatever you want to do. So we create those steps. So if we hop back down, whoop, we're still in util. So we hop back here, we create that right there. We have those tracks right here as track ref, and we map over it, and we have our track component, which we pass all this stuff right here. Track comes in, and we have an interesting dilemma here. If we have 32 steps, and for those 32 steps, we have in between 5 and 24 sub notes, right? That's a lot of elements, especially in a dynamic scenario. So the way that I decided to build this, the editor, right, where we can edit in the browser, is with Canvas, right? So we come in here and we look at our editor. We just look at the HTML. I have a canvas right here. All right. This is when you click the canvas, right? It finds out where you are and gives me the index, so I know which step you clicked. But when this mounts, right, we will draw our editor. So let's take a look at the editor before I show you how to draw it. So here's a drum track right here. So we have our title. This is all HTML. We have our mute button on and off. We have our volume. And then, right, we have the individual drum noise labels and then our steps. So if you mess with music at all, right, you have bars, right, and you have beats in a bar, right. If you had like a 4 on the floor type thing, like doo, 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 the beat would be the kick drum. So when you're seeing this zebra striping here, each one of those is indicative of the duration of a single beat, right? So if I did this, right, each one of those are beats at my tempo of 120. So let's take a look at how that works. So just to hop there for a second, I did this in Canvas because rendering all this with the DOM would get a little bit dicey from a performance perspective. It could be done, but the thing is that the music stuff is already pretty CPU intensive. So you got to save where you can. So we hop over here to our util, and this is our Canvas drawing here, right? So if you don't mess around with Canvas, I recommend that you do, because it's tons of fun. Not super accessible, which is a shame, but I heard there's things in the works, so they say. So we hop down here, and we clear it, and then draw the background, and then here we draw these zebra stripes, right? So we're filling a rect. We do fill rect, and we're essentially saying the width of the side plus the step width times 4, right? So what step width is would be one of these, right? So we're saying the side, which is this label section, and then the step width times 4, right? And then we're doing this is the background color. We're only drawing these lighter gray ones. So times 4 times 12 times 20 times 28, and that's how you get those. And then based upon the type that we have here, right? If it's a drum, then we go through and loop 5 times, and we'll go ahead and draw our label first, right? So we fill text on the label map, right? That draws our kick, snare, hat, all this business right here. And then we go through and draw our grid, which is really just lines. We're not drawing individual rectangles. We're really just drawing lines here, right, on top of this background, on top of the zebra stripes. And then we're gonna iterate through our steps down here, and we're gonna say if the note is true for any of them, right, then we draw one of these little rectangles. So at any given time, if any of those is true, that's like the last step of the drawing where you do that right there. So let's take a look at a bass track, right? So this is a little bit different. It is 24 notes. And then we go through up here, and then I very lazily just created this array of what indexes the black keys are at. So when I go through, right, I can go and kind of just draw that, and it's largely the same logic, just in a different number of steps there. So let's look at I have like a separate thing that's not wrapped up in how this is all made. So we can look at how tone works at a basic level. So here, right, we import tone from tone, and then we're going to create a sampler. So I say bass is equal to new tone.sampler. And then I say that this wave here, the 808.wave, is the natural sound for this key, which is F3, right? F in the 3rd octave. Here I set our BPM to 90. I have new tone.sequence. So what tone.sequence does is on the specified duration here, a 16th note, which you can think of as like hi-hats almost. It'll go through and it'll run through this array right here. In fact, it really should just be 7. I'm not going to run it, so it doesn't matter, but I digress. So it has this callback function here, so that when it hits each one of these after a 16th note, it'll call it with the time and the column. So here I say if column modulo 2 equals 0, which would be like a, like a kick drum, like doo, 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 doo. I say bass, right, which is our sampler. I say trigger attack. which is a fancy way to say play with the note F3. And then down here to get it to begin, I call tone.transport.start. Just to show you some of these words for a second. So come here. This is our transport. It's your transport panel. So you have your play and your stop. So transport in this nomenclature, is referencing, the overarching sequencer and its play control. So if we hop back to app, I'm going to show you how I did it. On mount, what I do is I set up my sequence, and I say for each one of the tracks, right, because we're storing that matrix of whether they're on or off. So for each one of these, right, if it's a drum, we say that the track.steps.column, right? If we hop back to here and look at where we're generating these steps, right? You have 32 columns. Hey now, you have 32 columns. So if the 32nd column, that gives you your step, and then your note index is 0 through 4. It's your 5 different steps. We say drums trigger attack. Now, if we look at how we have these set up here, I have these set up as those individual notes. So if you were to just like go up the keys, you'd have kick, snare, hat, open hi-hat, clap. And then the bass and the bell are relatively tuned. So we set our volume, which is our gain. If note is true, right? So when we go through the steps, if the note is true and the track is not muted, then we set our volume and we call trigger attack, which is basically play. And we're doing, largely the same thing for, our bass and our bell. And then we have this thing, tone.draw.schedule, right? Which schedules a frame where we can go and move like a marker. I have this marker thing right here. It lets you know where you are in the sequence, right? So tone will give you a callback. In order to move that, I just put a transform on it. So then we just have our play button, right? So here, we can update our BPM. We come back up. We have toggle play, which says tone.transport.start if tone.transport.state equals stopped. Right, so we'll do all that stuff, and that's mostly what there is to it. I mean, there's a lot of tangential React stuff going on in here, but making beats in the browser is pretty much this. I'm going to share a sandbox as well as the running app, so you can play with both and take a look at how this all comes together. But let's take a look at it right now because I think I'm running out of time. So here we can make some pretty dank beats right here in the browser. It gives a full authoring experience. So let's put in some claps. Ooh. Uh-oh. All right, now we're cooking. So we could speed it up, right? Your beats per minute could get faster, and it would be like... One of my favorite things to do is the mute, because then you can kind of like do your song, you know, like I sit here and be like, yeah. Shout to motherfucking Brendan Ike. Shout to Guillermo Rauch, motherfucking Yves Van Horn making this possible, and you know what I mean? All right, I think I'm over time. Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you have any questions, hit me in the QA or hit me on Twitter. You can hit me whenever. Holler at your boy.
Wow, Ken. That was pimp dope. Alright, I can't pretend to be cool like you. What was up with the tiger kimono? I want to know the story behind that first, because that's the most important part of your talk, obviously.
Yeah, so it's the third in a line of several kimonos. I bought my first one in Hong Kong when I was there personally, and I enjoyed it as evening wear. So then I saw one that had American flags and eagles with lightning and shit on it, and I got that. And then the same company that provided that one provided one in the spirit of Tiger King with tigers all over it, and I ordered that and just got it, and I'm very excited about that. It's very comfy. It provides a feature where the left breast of the kimono ties off on the side so that it doesn't come undone, which is it wasn't included in the America one, but I'm very excited about it. I'd also like to note that when I purchased this kimono, I also purchased a face mask for going to stores.
Nice.
And it's a face mask
Does it
that
match?
has Dr. Fauci's face on
Oh,
it.
God.
And I'm actually deeply disappointed
Uh-oh.
since receiving it with it on,
Okay.
and no one has commented or acknowledged that Dr. Fauci is on my face.
The most obscure one I've seen is actually, it's translucent, except it's got like a red ball in the person's mouth, and I'm like, well, that's crazy, that's insane. And I'm like, people are getting really creative with these masks, and that's not what I would wear.
Have you not seen the ones with the LEDs in?
Well, that's a talk later today, actually. There's one,
Oh, no way.
so that's going to be around 4 p.m. Pacific time, so probably after your bedtime, Joe, but
Yeah, I
I
gotta
know.
get one of those.
Chelsea Caucus does fashion tech, and she's got a talk about making wearable LED face masks that's coming up near the end of the day. So, yep, spoilers. I thought of it all. I'm like, how do we bring the coronavirus into the conference without infecting us all?
I see what you did there.
Yeah. So Ken, like, how do you come up with these, like, how do you know how to make music like this? Because I played with your app yesterday, and mine sounded like, you know, like my 5-year-old make music. It sounded good, but like, how do you like have the instinct for that? Or do you have a music background, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I've made beats for over 20 years. In fact, I basically fucked high school up to get signed to Universal Records as a beat maker.
Wow.
It turns out it's a less lucrative career than one would imagine, unless you're, like headline type dude. So, I had to go into computers, and that's worked out relatively. But I never really stopped. I still do this shit as a hobby. And what's funny is, if you started computers as a hobby and now you do it as a job, it probably fucking sucks. Like, anytime you take something that is chill and then you do it for work, it usually sucks. So like when I did music for work, like as a job, a lot of the time it wasn't my own shit, and it sucked. So I enjoy having it as a hobby, because then you're kind of like you're at the steering wheel at all times.
Yeah. So Tony is quite a musician. Tony used to rap, or still does rap for fun.
I rap too.
Yes.
I was actually once promised a rap battle with yourself, Ken.
I'll fuck you up.
Well, I was thinking we could do it. I was thinking we could do it right here, but I didn't prepare any of you for it. So, nah, it's a little late in the UK. All right. That's right.
We should do it. You got to do it all drill and shit, though. All right.
How about we do it for August HalfStack Online 2? And
I'm down.
Tony gave an infamous talk at HalfStack a couple years ago where he does speech recognition on rap lyrics to determine like how well speech recognition did, and it turns out because of auto-tune it doesn't do great, but it did an amazing job picking up Tony's live rapping, even with everyone in the audience going wild and crazy. It was like it was like 8 Mile all over again. It was really incredible. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Very pasty looking 8 Mile, I will say.
Yeah, well, you know, it was London rather than Detroit, but yeah, you know, it was close.
I mean,
We had
you're
the
in
caps.
UK. That's like the sunniest bit of the UK.
Yeah, that's true. It's more of a surf vibe down here.
Yeah.
UK's doing it these days. Like, you know, I remember I used to like never hear about UK rap and shit, and then fucking Stormzy comes out, and I'm like, who's this motherfucker? And then, I'm gonna tell you a funny story. I'm out there, and I used to work at Formidable, right? So I'd be out in like Seattle and shit, going to the Seattle office at Formidable. So I forget where we had come from, you know, training, perhaps the company party, but I'm in the Seattle airport, and I go to the VIP lounge, and who do I see? None other than Stormzy, right? So I'm sitting there with a coworker, I'm like, you know who the fuck that is? And this guy's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, it's Stormzy. He's like, I still have no idea. And I'm like, do you have any idea? Like, this motherfucker is a rapper. So like, I walk up to him, and I'm like, Stormzy in it? And he's like, hey, bro. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. What's up, man? And we sat there and chopped it up for like 10 minutes. It was crazy.
That is funny.
The UK's doing things these days, man.
There is a UK rapper who's rapped about JavaScript, or used JavaScript in a song before. But it was in a pub quiz question in London a couple years ago. James Milner asked, but I have no idea who it was, and no one got it right. You don't remember by
it
chance?
It wasn't Dylan then.
No. It was like a legitimate mainstream person through drop JavaScript and some lyrics. So we got to figure that out. But so with this app, what would you do next? Like, I was like, dude, you should like make it so I can record my tracks and share them, and like turn this into a music making app. And you're like, yeah, it's kind of slow. It's like in a browser, or like, what would you do with it next, man?
So I'll give a little bit of background on this, right? So the whole idea behind this, the reason I want to do it is to democratize music creation, right? So it's like, when I wanted to be a producer back in the day, I used to have to pirate software and shit because I didn't have money. Right now, like, I have like this like software set up with like, I don't know, like $4,500 worth of plugins and software like to do it. But like, when you're just when you're young, and that's when you make the good music, is when you're young. You're the innovative people, you're the creative people, you're doing the new thing. Back then, right, I don't have fucking $4,500, right? I can't afford this shit. So it's like, I want to provide like a free alternative for people, you know, kids and people who are getting into, anybody who wants to create. So that's the idea, right? But there's limitations, right? Because the web is kind of a piece of shit. And I don't mean that mean.
It's just the best piece of shit we have that's democratizable.
It's an unbelievable platform with an unbelievable distribution model, but at the same time, right? Like, it's still very much like set up for documents, right? Rather than like, you know, like real ass applications. And I've done shit with Wasm. I've done other shit. But like, if I were to take this to the next level, right, I would, you know, you'd have more of a piano roll in 24 steps. You'd get the whole piano roll from C0 to, you know, C7 or something like that. You'd be able to drag and drop samples in. You know, honestly, if it were to be reasonably powerful, I'd have to do it in an Electron app rather than on the web. Because you have a lot of interference when you have a browser tab in Chrome, and if you get backgrounded, etc. I recently, maybe like 6 months ago, had a talk at ReasonConf, right? We were writing OCaml, and I wrote a drum synth from scratch, like scratch, like sending like decimals to the sound card scratch, and it was unbelievable. It was like you know, the power that you hold there versus the power that you hold on the web. So, you know, I think I could take it pretty far. You know, like if I were to do it, like I could make it an A-grade authoring experience, probably modeled around like the Logic or Ableton experience. But you're always going to hit CPU issues at a certain point.
Yeah.
And, as the web gets more mature, I see that getting less of a problem. You do your sense, you do them in a WASM, and you do them in an audio worklet, things like that. But it's all very early. Audio worklets are a little crackly still. It takes time. But it's something in the future that I'd very much like to create and provide for free.
Yeah, I mean, the web is the ultimately democratizing platform, and so I think it makes perfect sense, and I totally agree with your sentiment. We're pretty much out of time, but that was really awesome and really fun, and I love that you can be legit engineer and yet ridiculously funny at the same time and speak your mind. It's really refreshing. So thanks so much, Ken.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys have an awesome night, all right?
Thanks, you too.
Salute.
Bye.
Cheers, Ken.